Our next reader is not a contestant in the Story Slam. It's Martha Frankel. And she's the fucking boss.
Do I need the mic, or can I just, do I need this mic? All right. That's good, actually. Thank you all for coming. If you lived in Woodstock in the 70s, you knew the hippie doctor. Everyone did. Dark-haired and sexy, he seduced women and befriended men. He had studied at Columbia and done his residency at Mount Sinai. There was no doubt he was a brilliant rising star. He practiced all kinds of medicine. He was internist, gynecologist, surgeon, obstetrician. He would take out a splinter or deliver a baby, often surrounded by a thick haze of smoke. Many of us still remember how he would bring piles of prescription drugs to parties and how safe you felt taking them. There was a doctor in the house. Pass the second alls, would you? The hippie doctor was beloved in Woodstock, did lots of charity work, and most importantly, made house calls. When Steve was cutting down a tree and a huge limb snapped and hit him in the ribs, the doctor came to dinner. It was raining and bleak, an early October night. The doctor brought along a handful of Quaaludes and a bottle of Goldwasser, a vile-tasting liquor that had real gold flakes floating in it. We each took a pill or two while I made dinner of brown rice and sautéed veggies. While we ate, we passed around that bottle, taking huge gulps straight from it. Afterwards, the doc handed Steve the keys to his brand new Suburban, and they headed out for a test drive. I watched them drive round and round the circular driveway that surrounded our house. The headlights reflected off the ceiling at a weird angle, and then I heard a thunderous crash. Steve had plowed the Suburban into a cedar tree that grew right outside the door. I ran outside. They both fell out of the truck, roaring with laughter. The bumper hung precariously from the frame. A cracked headlight clung to its socket. Rain sluiced off them. A thin line of blood trailed down Steve's forehead. The doc was too busy laughing to tend to Steve, so I washed his cut with peroxide while we finished off that Goldwasser and smoked another joint. Then the doctor told Steve to take off his shirt. Steve was clearly in pain, favoring his right side. The doctor had him hold his hands straight up in the air and breathe in. Then he started wrapping Steve's torso in tape, till Steve was covered from belly button to nipples. It wasn't surgical tape either. It was duct tape. The doc didn't put anything under the tape. It was pressed right into Steve's skin. Steve was so stoned that he went inside and passed out face up on the bed. The doc stuck around for another few hours until we were smoking roaches and licking the ends of our fingers for pill residue. When the wind blows, he said sadly, I hate being alone. It was the first time I realized we had never seen him with a woman. Before he staggered out, he nodded towards the bedroom and said, keep your eyes on him. I was putting dishes away when I heard a strange sound like a kitten mewing or a baby trying to suck on a bottle. I was so stoned that it took me a few minutes to realize we had no babies and no kittens. I went into the bedroom, and when I turned on the light, Steve was a ghostly white. He was breathing so shallowly that I was scared. Spittle was dripping from the corner of his mouth. I shook him gently on the shoulder and started shaking harder, then slapping his cheeks. When none of that worked, I turned him over, took a scissor, and cut the tape, running the scissor straight up his spine. When I got to the top, his diaphragm expanded, and he began gulping air. He was still unconscious. I turned him on his back and started to pull the tape off, but it was stuck to his hair. I tugged gently, then harder. It took me over an hour to get it all off, and the welts that rose that night were visible on his stomach and back for months. When the tape was finally removed, Steve woke up, lurched into the bathroom, threw up a few times, came back, and promptly passed out. I called the doc the next day, and when I told him what had happened, he said, well, sweetie, that's why they call it practicing medicine. I was livid, but it was hard to stay mad at him for long. He'd show up with some daisies and weeds he'd picked along the road, and as soon as he gave you his crooked smile, you'd be charmed. He remembered your mother's name and gave her blood pressure medicine when she came up from Florida without it. He was your equal, but he had that doctor degree, and he would sometimes let you draw each other's blood. A few weeks later, he came to a Halloween party dressed as a doctor, all in white, with a stethoscope around his neck. People were struck dumb. They had never seen him in anything but jeans and a t-shirt. He won first prize. Thank you.